Tonight, police and federal prosecutors bringing a fresh approach to cracking down on violent gangs.
The U.S. Attorney's Office turning to racketeering laws, once used to take down the mafia, and now trying to dismantle Minneapolis street gangs. They say these gangs are responsible for a generation of murder, retaliation, and drug trafficking.
Tonight, Paul Bloom talks with prosecutors, investigators, and victims about this new approach to an old problem.
And those interviews, along with a review of court records, helped us trace a generation of gang violence back to one specific incident, a deadly shooting 20 years ago. What do you remember about that case?
All we knew was some kind of house party that kind of went wild.
Veteran homicide investigators Charlie Adams and Richard Zimmerman responded to the scene at 12th and Knox in Minneapolis, May 2004.
As I recall, it was some groups from another gang that showed up at the party. And of course, then they had their interaction, and that's what sparked it.
Charging documents at the time detail a toxic mix of gang members at the large house party when gunfire erupted, creating chaos throughout the neighborhood.
10 seconds later, somebody put out a gun and started shooting.
18-year-old gang member Christopher Little was killed, igniting a gang war now decades long. The highs and the lows, often separated by just a single street, West Broadway in North Minneapolis. A battle over the same territory.
He's got 9 lives, man, you know.
Involving some of these same faces.
Ashimiyu Olanle.
Now under federal indictment.
He's been around. He's been a target at least 3 or 4 times on some of our cases where people end up dying.
All it takes is an attitude, anger, and access to a weapon. And before you know it, it's on with one shot that can reverberate back and forth forever.
For years,
community leaders look for peace after a night of partying ends with bullets flying.
We have witnessed the resulting violence.
We need to send a call out to our community. And we want you to stop this madness of spilling each other's blood.
Gun violence and gang activity in our community deserves all hands on deck.
But now, for the first time, state investigators as well as federal prosecutors are pinpointing exactly when it started and how far it is spreading.
In any gang war and in the development of any gang, there are certain incidents that trigger both the conflict and the growth of the organization, and that's one of them.
That's not uncommon, that some of these feuds become simmering and generational in nature, and we need to end that.
In these federal court records from 2023, investigators say the feud between the highs and the lows started after Little, who was a member of the Lows, was killed. Quote, since this murder, there have been hundreds of shootings and murders between these two entities, adding that the victims of the ongoing violence include gang members as well as, quote, innocent adults and children who have had nothing to do with street gangs.
And then she didn't come home.
Including Carmaine Tietzel's daughter.
I don't know. But, yeah, she didn't come home.
Autumn Merrick was struck and killed while riding a scooter near Target Field, October 2021.
My daughter just turned 18, like her life was just beginning.
The shining star of her family, Autumn, was caught in the middle of a car chase and rolling shootout involving feuding gang members, including a man connected to the deadly house party shooting back in 2004. Lavelle Elmore was convicted of first-degree riot after police say he opened fire on Knox Avenue, triggering a generation of gang violence. Now, nearly 2 decades later, Elmore admitted he was behind the wheel of one of the vehicles, the Dodge Durango, that struck and killed Autumn Merrick.
They've been in and out of jail doing the same thing. Like, I don't get it. You are 30-something years old. You don't get, you haven't changed? Like, I don't get it.
What's going to make a difference? Which piece of this carnage can we take federally?
The violence forced outgoing U.S. Attorney Andrew Lugar to treat gangs, the highs, the lows, and the bloods, as criminal enterprises.
The charges we announced today against the Lows allege a pattern of unthinkable and reprehensible violence.
Charging dozens of alleged members with federal racketeering, also known as the RICO law, used to dismantle the mafia.
So if 4 people are involved in 3 murders and they do it on behalf of the gang, that's the basis for a RICO, and that's what we've done over and over and over again.
An organization of violence that started with a shootout 20 years ago.
There was something that night, that mixture of people, is that just kind of an ignition point?
No, that's exactly right. And there are really two types of trigger points for these. Like you said, a major gang leader is killed, there's retaliation, a war builds over that. The other is just the circumstances, who was there, how they reacted, and what they chose to do after that.
With the U.S. Attorney's Office in transition as a new administration is set to arrive in Washington, Andy Lugar is confident that these RICO cases will continue in federal court. So far, his team has charged nearly 100 alleged gang members. Paul Bloom, Fox 9.